One of the best ways to learn a language is through stories, the way that little kids do, the way that children do. And that's exactly what we're going to do today in this video. We are going to begin a new book together. The name of the book is The Secret Garden. This is a very, very famous book that was written over 100 years ago, but it's a great way to improve our English. It's a great pick for improving our English because the language used in this book is surprisingly modern. Yeah, it doesn't feel like it was written that long ago. It feels like it was written not long ago at all. So guys, here's the plan for today. I'm going to read chapter 1 of this book to you. And as we go through the text, line by line, we will stop and talk about and discuss and pick apart and analyze what we are reading. You will notice that I will paraphrase frequently. Paraphrase frequently. What does that mean? If you paraphrase something, that means you say it in a different way. You put it in your own words. And this is a great way to practice your English flexibility. Flexibility, right? You need to be able to say something many different ways if you truly want to be fluent in English. So that's the plan. We're going to improve our reading skills, of course, our listening skills and our vocabulary, but you can shadow along with me as I read and repeat after me to improve your speaking skills, your spoken English as well. So guys, make sure you watch all the way till the end. I'm going to give you a little update at the end of this video about me personally, my life, this channel, and what I have planned for the future. Okay? So click like, maybe comment, tell me where you're watching from because that really helps me out. And let's dive in. I don't want to give away. I don't want to reveal, or spoil too much about this book because I want the plot. I want the story, what happens, to be a surprise, okay? But all you need to know is that the story is centered around a little girl. She's the main character, a little girl named Mary Lennox. Mary Lennox, okay? So chapter 1, there is no one left. Let's dive in. When Mary Lennox was sent to Misselthwaite Manor to live with her uncle, everybody said she was the most disagreeable looking child ever seen. Okay, so we've got a little girl, Mary. She was sent away, sent off, right, to this manor, Misselthwaite Manor. A manor, maybe like a big, impressive house, a large home, a big house, kind of like a mansion, a big fancy house, right? She is sent there to live with her uncle. So she's not living with her parents, right? And when she got there, Everybody agreed. Everybody was commenting on the way she looked, on her appearance, right? Saying that she looked really disagreeable. If someone is an agreeable person, that means they are easy to get along with, right? They're easy to get on with, easy to get along with. Yeah, they're personable, maybe we could say. Personable. Really easy to talk to, right? So if someone is disagreeable, well, that means they are difficult to get along with, and she looks like she is difficult to be around, right? Okay. It was true, too. Mary, she had a little thin face and a little thin body, thin light hair, and a sour expression. Love this. So she's tiny, she's really skinny, and she's got a sour expression, kind of like a look on her face. Now, sour, that's a really interesting word to use here, right? A sour expression. Makes me think of disagreeable. If something is sour, all right, it's disagreeable to your palate, to your taste buds, right? It's not enjoyable for most of us to eat. So if someone has a sour expression on their face, maybe they look like they're having a bad time. They don't look very happy, right? Her hair was yellow and her face was yellow because she had been born in India and had always been ill or sick in one way or another. Okay. In one way or another, she had always been, how could we paraphrase ill? Yeah, sick. Maybe we could say unwell, not well, right? How about unhealthy? Unhealthy? Not looking good, right? She had always been, not in a good way, not in a healthy way. Her father had held a position under the English government. He had held a position, so basically meaning he had worked for the English government and had always been busy and ill himself. Okay, he was a busy guy. He was sick all the time. And her mother had been a great beauty, So a really beautiful woman, right? How could we paraphrase? Maybe an attractive woman. Attractive. If she's really good looking, really beautiful, maybe, and it sounds like she is, right? Because she's a great beauty. Maybe we could even say stunning. A stunning woman. Can you guys think of another way to say that? How about breathtaking? Breathtaking, right? Gorgeous. Gorgeous woman. Now, what did she like to do? She was a great beauty who cared only to go to parties and amuse herself with gay people. All right, now, these days, this word means something very different, right? You guys, I probably don't need to explain that to you, but back when this was written, it just meant happy people who like to have a good time, right? So, look at this. She only cared to go to parties. That means she only wanted to go to parties and amuse herself, or maybe hang out with, we could say, people who like to have fun. She liked to party, basically, and have a good time. She had not wanted a little girl at all. And when Mary was born, she handed her over to the care of an ayah, who was made to understand that if she wished to please, we'll continue with that in a second. Okay. So Mary's mom, she never even wanted to give birth to her, to have a child, right? So when she was born, her mom kind of handed her over, or gave her to an ayah. In India, these English families would have Indian helpers and servants, right? So that's what an ayah was. Basically a maid, right? A maid, a helper. So, hey, here you go. You take care of my daughter. I don't want to be troubled with it. I don't want to be bothered with it. I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to deal with that, right? Okay. So the ayah was made to understand. They told the ayah, she was made to understand that if she wished to please the Mem Sahib, she must keep the child out of sight as much as possible. Okay, so basically, if she wanted to keep Mary's mom and dad happy, keep the parents happy, then she needed to make sure they saw Mary as little as possible, keep her out of sight as much as possible. In other words, they don't want her hanging around. They don't want to see her, right? They don't want to be reminded that they have a kid to look after. Okay? So when she was a sickly, fretful, ugly little baby, she was kept out of the way. And when she became a sickly, fretful, toddling thing, she was kept out of the way also. All right, so even as a baby, she was sickly. That means unhealthy, fretful, maybe crying all the time. If you are fretting about something, that means you are worrying about something, stressing about something. So fretful, full of fret, right? Maybe crying, maybe being noisy, anxious, right? She was ugly as well. Man, this poor thing. And then when she became a toddling thing, a little bit older, still a very young child, and to toddle means to kind of walk unsteadily, the way a very little kid walks. That's why we call them toddlers, right? If a kid is 2 years old, 3 years old, 4, we call them a toddler. And that is the reason. They toddle around like this as they walk, right? They walk unsteadily. So poor Mary, her parents want nothing to do with her at all. She never remembered seeing familiarly anything but the dark faces of her ayah and the other native servants. So Mary only remembers the faces of the servants, the native servants. At this time, Mary was living in India, right? So these servants were native to India. They lived in India. They were from India, basically. Native. And as they always obeyed her, great word, obeyed her, did what she asked, did what she told them to do, right? And gave her her own way in everything, because the Mem Sahib would be angry if she was disturbed by her crying. By the time she was 6 years old, she was, as great word here, tyrannical and selfish a little pig as ever lived. Okay, so what is going on here? Remember, this is the mom of the house. This is Mary's mom, right? Basically, the servants don't want to disturb Mary's parents. They don't want to bother them, right? Disturb them, bother them. Maybe we could say trouble them, okay? They don't want to be a burden, So they try to keep Mary happy. Here's a great word. They try to placate Mary. That just means keep her in a good mood, keep her feeling good, keep her happy, okay? And so because of that, they never say no to Mary. Mary always gets her way. And so, by the time she was 6 years old, she had developed some nasty habits, right? For one, she was tyrannical. Tyrannical. That's a great word. What is tyrannical? If someone is tyrannical, it reminds me of the word tyrant, right? Tyrant, meaning a ruler who abuses their power in maybe a cruel way, right? They are using their great power in a bad way, right? Tyrant. So tyrannical means she's a little bit drunk with power, right? A little bit going overboard with her power, right? Because she has power over these servants. She's tyrannical. She's being kind of cruel to them, using her power. She's very selfish. They call her a selfish little pig, right? So she's a very nasty little girl. The young English governess who came to teach her to read and write disliked her so much that she gave up her place in 3 months. Okay. What is a governess? That's a woman who would come to these English homes back in the old days. I don't really think this happens anymore. It might, but I don't think so. A woman who would come to the home to teach the children. That was called a governess. Okay. So this governess, she was hired to come and teach her to read and to write, but the governess and Mary did not get along well. In other words, they did not exactly hit it off. Here's a great expression. Hit it off, meaning you begin your relationship in a very good way. The relationship is looking promising, right? For example, maybe you get a new job and it's your first day at work. Your first day at work. You are meeting your new coworkers and you discover that you have a lot in common with one of your coworkers, and you start talking to them and you have a really good conversation. The two of you hit it off. Okay, you've just begun your new relationship and it's going really well already, right? So you've hit it off. Well, the governess and Mary, they didn't exactly hit it off, right? The governess really disliked her. Maybe we could even say the governess loathed her, hated her, or detested her, right? Okay, so she gave up her place in only 3 months. And when other governesses came to try to fill it, this empty job opening, right? They always went away in a shorter time than the first one. So, the first one lasted for 3 months. The second one, maybe 2 months. The third one, maybe just 1 month. So, if Mary had not chosen really to want to know how to read books, she would never have learned her letters at all. Okay? It was really up to Mary, in other words, to learn how to read, because she didn't end up with a teacher, and it became her own responsibility. Man, Mary sounds like a real nightmare, a real handful, right? Okay. So, one frightfully hot morning, frightfully meaning very, extremely, right? One extremely hot morning, when she was about 9 years old, she awakened, she woke up, feeling very cross or angry. And she became crosser still, or she became even angrier when she saw that the servant who stood by her bedside was not her ayah. Okay? There's a servant or a helper, right, standing by her bed at her bedside, but it's not her usual ayah, her normal maid. "Why did you come?" she said to the strange woman. She doesn't recognize this person, right? "I will not let you stay. Send my ayah to me." The woman looked frightened or scared, right? But she only stammered that the ayah could not come. Okay, so this poor woman, this poor lady, she looks really freaked out, looks really afraid, frightened, and she starts to stammer. Right? If it's difficult for you to speak, if you are, maybe we could say, stuttering, right? We can say stammer as well. You're having difficulty speaking. You keep mixing up your words, right? So she says, I'm so sorry, but your ayah, she can't come. She's not going to make it. And when Mary threw herself into a passion, in other words, she throws a fit. Have you guys heard that before? Throw a fit. Or sometimes we say throw a tantrum. Throw a temper tantrum. Just means get really angry, start yelling, start shouting. What did she do? She beat and kicked her, so she's attacking her, right? Yikes, what a nightmare, this girl. She's beating her, kicking her, attacking her. She looked only more frightened when Mary did this, and repeated, or said again, that it was not possible for the ayah to come to Missy Sahib. I guess that's Mary, right? In their local language, okay? There was something mysterious in the air that morning, right? Something mysterious in the air. In other words, it seems like something weird is going on, okay? Something is afoot. It's a very old-fashioned way of saying that something feels off. Something feels wrong, right? Nothing was done in its regular order, and several of the native servants seemed missing, while those whom Mary saw slunk or hurried about with ashy and scared faces. Okay, so basically, Mary is looking around. She's thinking, why aren't people going about their duties, their responsibilities, their job as usual. Why are people missing, right? I can't find the people I'd normally see. Where are they? The people she does see, they're slinking around, kind of looking sneaky, right? Looking suspicious. And she's wondering what in the world is going on, but no one would tell her anything. And her ayah did not come. She was actually left alone as the morning went on, and at last wandered out into the garden and began to play by herself under a tree near the veranda. What's a veranda? Let's pretend that this is a house, right? You can see the roof, you can see the body of the house. Well, maybe there's an area that connects to the outside, like a porch, right? A porch where you can sit on the porch and it's screened in, maybe with a roof. It's like a little area attached to the house for sitting. Okay? So she's playing by herself under a tree. She's pretending that she was making a flower bed, and she stuck big scarlet hibiscus blossoms into little heaps of earth. That's a kind of flower, right? A beautiful flower. All the time, this situation is feeling more and more off, okay? All the time means all the while. In the meanwhile, in the meantime, she's growing more and more angry and muttering to herself the things she would say and the names she would call Sadie when she returned. Maybe that's her ayah, right? So she's muttering under her breath, kind of like grumbling, right? She is grumbling, muttering, kind of talking to herself in a quiet, angry way, blah, 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 blah. She is thinking, fantasizing about all the nasty things she's going to say to her helper. Pig, pig, daughter of pigs, she said, because to call a native a pig is the worst insult of all. Yikes. Uh-oh. So maybe, right, if you call one of the native people pig, that's extremely insulting to them in their culture. That's like the mother of all insults. It's the worst thing you could possibly say, right? She was grinding her teeth, basically her top teeth, her bottom teeth, rubbing them hard together. She's so angry, right? And saying this over and over again. When something happened, she heard her mother come out on the veranda with someone. She never sees her mom, right? She was with a fair young man, maybe he's good looking, and they stood talking together in low, strange voices. They're like whispering about something. Mary knew the fair young man who looked like a boy. She had heard that he was a very young officer who had just come from England. So he's an officer, maybe in the army, kind of like a soldier, like a high-ranking soldier, right? The child stared at him, looking right at him. But she stared most at her mother. She always did this when she had a chance to see her, because the Mem Sahib, Mary used to call her that oftener than anything else, or more often than anything else. That's her mom, I guess, in the native language. Her mom was such a tall, slim, skinny, pretty person and wore such lovely clothes. Her hair was like curly silk, very soft hair, right? And she had a delicate little nose, which seemed to be disdaining things. And she had large laughing eyes, a great description of Mary's mom. Okay, her nose is delicate. What is delicate? Maybe that we could also say fragile in a beautiful way, dainty. In other words, it looks as if it could be broken easily, and it must be handled with care, right? You have to be very careful with it. But it's not just fragile, it's beautiful, right? Now, the nose seemed to be disdaining things. Maybe it's an upturned nose, and her mom keeps her nose pointed up as if she looks down on things or people, or she's too good for everyone, right? Disdaining, basically meaning she looks down on things around her. She thinks she's better than everybody else. Okay? Large, laughing eyes. All her clothes were thin and floating, so she seems weightless, right? Weightless. And Mary said they were full of lace, okay, very light material. They looked fuller of lace than ever this morning, but her eyes were not laughing at all. They were large and scared and lifted imploringly to the fair boy officer's face. Imploringly. So she has questions for him. Okay? To implore, to want to know more, to ask more, to implore. So she's looking at him imploringly. She's maybe hoping he has answers to her questions. It is so very bad. Oh, is it? Mary heard her say. Awfully, the young man answered in a trembling voice. Maybe we could say shaking, right? Awfully, Mrs. Lennox. You ought to have gone to the hills 2 weeks ago. You ought to have. In other words, you should have. You should have gone. You should have gone. He's giving her advice, right? Mary's mom wrung her hands, kind of wiping her hands together, moving her hands together like this. I think that's an anxious gesture. She's worried, right? Oh, I know I ought, she cried. I only stayed to go to that silly dinner party. What a fool I was. Interesting. So Mary's mom has decided to stay in this area where they are, and something bad is happening in this area. She stayed in order to go to a dinner party. That's the reason she stayed, right? And now she's kind of kicking herself, right? That means beating herself up. She's mad at herself, criticizing herself, calling herself a fool. Oh, what a fool I was. That was so foolish of me. At that very moment, just then, such a loud sound of wailing, crying, broke out from the servants' quarters, where the helpers live, where the maids and the ayah live, the servants' quarters, that she clutched the young man's arm. She grabbed it hard. She clutched it. And Mary stood shivering from head to foot. Mary is shivering. She is really terrified, and it sends a chill down her spine. Okay. It's a really scary sound, right? The wailing grew wilder and wilder. So somebody is crying in a really scary way. What is it? What is it? Mrs. Lennox gasped, basically cried out. Someone has died, answered the boy officer. You did not say it had broken out among your servants. It had broken out, meaning spread. Oh no, something is spreading among her servants, between them, from one person to the next. What is it? What is this horrible thing that's happening? I did not know, the Mem Sahib said. Mary's mother said, come with me, come with me. And she turned and ran into the house. After that, appalling things happened. Appalling meaning shocking and scary, extremely scary, right? And the mysteriousness of the morning was explained to Mary. Finally, somebody is going to let her know what is going on here. The cholera had broken out in its most fatal form, and people were dying like flies. Sometimes we also say dropping like flies. Cholera. What is cholera? It's a disease where the person who is afflicted by the disease, they become extremely dehydrated through vomiting, through diarrhea. They become very, very dehydrated. They are very low on water. And because of this, it can be fatal. It can kill you. So people are dying like flies due to the cholera outbreak, or because of the cholera spreading, right? The ayah had been taken ill in the night, and it was because she had just died that the servants had wailed in the huts. A hut is like a small house, pretty basic. Maybe I can add a small basic or bare bones house. Doesn't use a lot of fancy materials when it is built. So, oh no, this poor woman has died, and everyone is very upset. Before the next day, 3 other servants were dead, and others had run away in terror or extreme fear. So yeah, this is a very appalling or shocking and scary situation. There was panic on every side, and dying people in all the bungalows and all the houses. Okay, a bungalow is a certain kind, a certain style of house. Well, there is panic all around. People are freaking out, right? During the confusion, nobody knows what's going on. The bewilderment, that's a good synonym for confusion. They mean basically the same thing. During the confusion and bewilderment of the second day, Mary hid herself in the nursery where little kids, babies, are taken care of, and was forgotten by everyone. Nobody thought of her. Nobody wanted her. And strange things happened of which she knew nothing. So in the outside world, scary stuff is going on, but, she has no idea. She's just hiding. Mary alternately cried and slept. Alternately, meaning going back and forth. Going back and forth. She's crying, now she's sleeping, now crying, now sleeping through the hours. She only knew that people were ill and that she heard mysterious and frightening sounds. Once she crept or crawled carefully, sneakily, into the dining room and found it empty. No one was there. Though a partly finished meal was on the table, and chairs and plates looked as if they had been hastily pushed back when the diners, or the people who were eating, right, rose suddenly for some reason. Rose suddenly, got up, stood up suddenly for some reason. So, in other words, what this is saying is that when she goes into the dining room, she finds the food half eaten, half finished, partly finished, right? It seems like people got up and left the meal very suddenly. The diners, the people eating there did, right? For some reason. The child ate some fruit and biscuits, and being thirsty, she's very thirsty, she's probably, parched, totally parched, extremely thirsty. She drank a glass of wine, which stood nearly filled, an almost full glass of wine. It was sweet, and she did not know how strong it was. Very soon it made her intensely drowsy. Two good words here. Intensely, very much, extremely drowsy. We could say sleepy, maybe we could say sluggish, moving in a slow and cumbersome way, like your arms and legs are heavy, right? But mostly sleepy. And she went back to her nursery and shut herself in again, frightened by cries she heard in the huts and by the hurrying sounds of feet. The wine made her so sleepy that she could barely keep her eyes open, and she lay down on her bed and knew nothing more for a long time. Wow, so she really has no idea what's going on in the outside world. Many things happened during the hours in which she slept so heavily or deeply, but she was not disturbed or woken up, right, by the wails and the sound of things being carried in and out of the bungalow. So a lot of stuff is going on outside, but she's sleeping through all of it. She's sleeping very heavily. When she woke up, she lay and stared at the wall. The house was perfectly still, very quiet and still, right? Nothing is moving. She had never known it to be so silent before. So she had never seen it like this. She heard neither voices nor footsteps, so she didn't hear either of these. Totally quiet, and wondered if everybody had got well of the cholera and all the trouble was over. Poor, naive Mary is thinking, hey, maybe everybody recovered, right? Maybe everybody is feeling better now. I don't think that's the case, unfortunately. I don't think that's true. She wondered also who would take care of her now that her ayah was dead. There would be a new ayah, and perhaps she would know some new stories. Wow. Very selfish indeed, right? This woman has died, lost her life, and all Mary can think about is, maybe there will be a new maid to read me new stories. Very selfish, self-centered. Mary had been rather tired of the old ones. She did not cry because her nurse had died. She was not an affectionate child, showing lots of care towards other people, right? And had never cared much for anyone. The noise and hurrying about and wailing over the cholera had frightened her, and she had been angry because no one seemed to remember that she was alive. So she's feeling, I'll teach you a great word. She's feeling indignant. Say that with me. Indignant. That means you are angry because you think someone has treated you poorly. Someone has not treated you well. Maybe they've been rude to you. They've done something bad to you. You think that's unfair, so you are angry. We call that indignant. Everyone was too panic-stricken, full of panic, fear, to think of a little girl no one was fond of. If you're fond of something, you like it, right? Well, no one was fond of her. So, in other words, no one likes her. When people had the cholera, it seemed that they remembered nothing but themselves. But if everyone had got well again, surely someone would remember and come to look for her. So she's thinking, aren't they going to come look for me? Surely they will search for me, right? But no one came. And as she lay waiting, the house seemed to grow more and more silent. 2 more pages, guys. You're doing great. We're almost done with this chapter. She heard something rustling on the matting. Something is rustling, making noise, right? And when she looked down, she saw a little snake gliding along and watching her with eyes like jewels. Ooh, great writing here. Eyes like jewels. Maybe meaning the eyes are shining, sparkling, bright, right? She was not frightened because he was a harmless little thing who would not hurt her. Harmless, will not hurt her. And he seemed in a hurry to get out of the room. He slipped under the door as she watched him. How queer and quiet it is. Queer is kind of an old-fashioned way of saying strange, unusual, right? We don't really say that anymore. It sounds as if there was no one in the bungalow, in the house, but me and the snake. Almost the next minute, she heard footsteps. Oh, great, somebody's here, right? In the compound, in the area, the collection of homes, okay? And then on the veranda, on the porch, they were men's footsteps. And the men entered the bungalow and talked in low voices. No one went to meet or speak to them. And they seemed to open doors and look into rooms. So basically, some people are here to investigate, all right? They're here to check the place out and see what's going on here. What desolation, desolation, she heard one voice say. That pretty, pretty woman. I suppose the child, too. I heard there was a child, though no one ever saw her. So, desolation, this word, means something is empty, it's ruined, it's abandoned, it's left behind. He's exclaiming, what desolation. This place feels so empty, so ruined. And he's worrying, right, about the mom and Mary. Mary was standing in the middle of the nursery when they opened the door a few minutes later. So she's just standing there. What did she look like? She looked an ugly Cross little thing. She looks angry and was frowning because she was beginning to be hungry and feeling disgracefully neglected. Fantastic word here, neglected, meaning she is not getting enough attention. No one is paying attention to her. Okay, she's not being taken care of. She's being forgotten about. The first man who came in was a large officer she had once seen talking to her father. He looked tired and troubled, but when he saw her, he was so startled, that he almost jumped back. Okay? So this guy is tired looking. He's got a lot weighing on his mind with this whole cholera outbreak. I'm sure he's really sad, really stressed out, right? But even so, right? Even still, when he sees her, whoa, it startles him, gives him a good shock, and he almost jumps back. Okay, last page here. "Barney," he cried out, "there's a child here. A child alone in a place like this. Mercy on us. Who is she? Have mercy." In other words, he thinks the situation is terrible. "I am Mary Lennox," the little girl said, drawing herself up stiffly. She doesn't feel very comfortable with these people, right? So she's kind of stiff, kind of frozen. She thought the man was very rude to call her father's bungalow a place like this. "I fell asleep when everyone had the cholera, and I have only just wakened up. Why does nobody come?" So basically, I fell asleep, I woke up, everyone's gone. Why is no one here? Where in the world is everybody, right? "It is the child no one ever saw," exclaimed the man, turning to his companions, the people who are with him in his group. "She has actually been forgotten." "Why was I forgotten?" Mary said, stamping her foot, putting her foot down. "Why does nobody come?" She's really frustrated and angry, right? And honestly, I think she has good reason to be. Everyone did forget about her. The young man, whose name was Barney, looked at her very sadly. He knows why nobody came, right? Mary even thought she saw him wink his eye, as if to wink tears away. So he's fighting back tears, we sometimes say. Fighting back tears, trying hard not to cry. "Poor little kid," he said. "There is nobody left to come." It was in that strange and sudden way that Mary found out that she had neither father nor mother left. Her parents are dead, that they had died and been carried away in the night, and that the few native servants who had not died also had left the house as quickly as they could get out of it. Yeah, they left as fast as they could, none of them even remembering that there was a Missy Sahib. They completely forgot about Mary. Either they forgot or they didn't care enough to go back and get her. That was why the place was so quiet, so unnaturally quiet. It was true that there was no one in the bungalow but herself and the little rustling snake. All right, guys, we're going to stop there for today. We covered a lot of ground in this first chapter, as you can see. We learned a lot of new vocabulary, and I think this is a really gripping first chapter. I mean, a lot happens in this first chapter. It's really dramatic, right? So guys, if this video can get 1,000 likes, I will make part 2 and continue with this book. And now for everyone who stuck around till the end of the video, I will give you a little update about me and the channel and everything going on here. You guys remember Flipped from last time? I had a lot of people ask me what happened to this series, so I just wanted to mention it really quickly. I did want to continue reading this book, but unlike The Secret Garden, which is over 100 years old, this was written not that long ago, and I would have run into copyright issues if I kept going with it. I even reached out to the publisher. I got in touch with them, and they said I was not allowed to continue reading. I would really hate to lose my YouTube channel after putting all of this work, all of these years into the channel. So unfortunately, we're not going to continue with Flipped, but it is a great book for practicing English. And if you liked what we read of it, maybe you can keep going. So The Secret Garden is the book I settled on because I really like this style of video. I really like this format. I'm also a writer. I love stories. I love teaching through stories. I've been looking for a good public domain book, a book that I won't get in trouble for using, right? Because it's over 100 years old. And I looked at a lot of them, but was struggling to find a book that had more modern language. A lot of those stories really sound old, and I don't want to teach you guys outdated English. So I was really excited to start reading this book, start researching a little bit, and see that the language used is pretty fresh, pretty modern. And of course, when I'm explaining things, I can always put them in a more modern way to make sure we are learning how to speak and listen like native English speakers in 2026. Great. So I just wanted to mention that and also talk about what's going on with me. You guys have probably noticed that I'm not posting too much. I haven't been posting very often. One reason for this is I've been trying to find a new book. I ordered this online. It took a long time to get here for some reason, so I was waiting for it to come. But also, I've been preparing for a new job. Yeah, a new teaching job. I don't just do YouTube. I also teach full time. And I am going to be starting at a new school very soon. So I've been getting ready for that. I've also been really focusing on my physical health. I've been trying to take better care of myself, trying to sleep better, trying to eat and drink better, and exercise as much as I can. So yeah, I guess I've taken a little step back from YouTube to focus on those things. But if you guys like this series and you want me to continue, I would love to continue. I'm curious, what's going on with you guys? Down in the comments section, why don't you give me a little life update? I love keeping in touch with my subscribers. So I would love to know what's been going on with you guys. How's work? How's life? How are you? Let me know down below. I promise I will respond to each and every comment. I will actually read your comments. So, once again, thank you guys for your support. If this video does well, I'll keep going. Maybe you can buy your own copy and read along with me if people like the video. And I'm actually going to visit my parents next week. I'm taking a little trip to see them. I'm not sure if I'll have another video next week, but let's see. If people like it, I can find a way to record one. Anyhow, thank you guys for all of your support. Much love. I'll see you again next time.